Hello, my name is Benjamin, and I'll be analyzing the question, analyze the extent to which 1968 represents a permanent turning point for the U.S. in regards to the following: national politics, the Vietnam War, and civil rights. Although there are many turning points in the 20th century, the two major turning points was the Vietnam War and the civil rights movement of 1968 because it changes the way Americans view about the nation. So first of all, the Vietnam War marks a turning point in 1968 because the tide of the war was changing due to the North Vietnam State Offensive. The reason why it is a turning point because it changes the way Americans view about their government, about the constitutional rights, and about their media. So before 1968, many Americans did not oppose the war because they believed that the U.S. can win the war due to President Lyndon Johnson's statement about the light at the end of the tunnel. But then after viewing the horrors of the Third Offensive on television, it led them to form a group known as the Vietnam Veterans Against the War, in which they led big protests throughout the country, in which eventually led President Lyndon Johnson to resign and for the war to end, and the Paris Peace occurred in 1973 for them. So as a result from this rebellious nature, a rich counterculture was developed in which Americans started to listen to protest music, they started to paint protest arts, they started to use heroin in order to make time go by faster, and they started to start the environment movement, and the Black Power and the Civil Rights movement also strengthened during this time because black people or African Americans also served during the war, and that is why the Tet Offensive in 1968 of the Vietnam War was a turning point. And as a result from the Tet Offensive in 1968, as a result from that, the Civil Rights movement began to be a turning point. As before, African Americans had to live under a law of segregation where they couldn't enter white schools, white suburbs, or white buses, etc. An example from that is Rosa Parks' example, a situation in which she wasn't allowed to sit in a white seat on a bus. And after the turning point occurred, and after the civil rights movement started growing, the government started to pass the Fair Housing Act of 1968, in which it bans the discrimination of on the sale or housing of on the sale or housing. So and around this time, the Black Power movement also emerges due to the influence of Martin Luther King Jr. And although this was a turning point, it wasn't really a major turning point because the major turning point is when Martin Luther King was assassinated by a white American in 1968, and as a result, the peaceful or civil rights movement started to turn into the violent civil rights movement, and the African Americans started to use violence in order to get their rights. An example of that is the Black Power movement, in which was peaceful, and now it turns to a violent movement, and that they started to spread riots throughout the country after King's death. And an example from that, and another example is the Black Panther Party, in which was formed, and then with the quote, "Political power comes through the barrel of a gun," and this group also led protests throughout the country, and that is why the assassination of Martin Luther King represents a profound turning point in history. Thank you.